the first that comes to mind in light of the data that I see is that the linear model of fashion consumption is very inefficient. And it's inefficient in a way that it seems to put a lot more into the system than the system can ever put to productive use. And that's what I think and what I see is one of the fundamental problems with the linear model. And how I see it is, for example, like a person, this is a typical pattern. A person might have, let's say, 6 years worth of supply, if you like, of a certain category of clothes, let's say jackets. But then when I look at the average wardrobe age of these items, it might be 3. So only that logically says that this equation doesn't compute. so we put in more than we could like ever put to productive use. So there's like, we not only have overcapacity in the sense, but we keep building overcapacity into the system. And I think that seems to be one of the key problems with the linear model. So it's inefficient, but it also can't solve itself in a way. And then I see there's a big potential, as I see it, to solving this at the system level, because at the individual level, this is an understandable accumulation. We want that variety, but that, as I see it, puts a constraint on. We cannot really solve it one wardrobe at a time. But I see a lot of potential in solving this at the system level, and by that mean that this 30 to 50% of highly underutilized assets, to create a more fluid way of provisioning them, meaning that rather than we linearly sell to people and then they kind of sit on them until they are no longer interesting. And of course there are exceptions, but rather see to that we match better when something is needed and can provision in a more flexible way. So in summary, I think it's more about the supply side than the demand side. And one thing to note, and this is something I'm particularly interested in looking at the data, is that my current hypothesis is that this transitioning to a more circular model doesn't necessarily need to shrink the market. Because you might think that if we want to be more efficient, then we should just consume better, buy, let's say, half of the stuff that we need. But it need not necessarily be like that. And it need not necessarily mean lower revenues because of more efficient buying. It doesn't, likewise, it doesn't necessarily mean trying to convince consumers to spend more on, let's say, higher quality items because they are more sustainable or durable, let's say, because they already are. So as I see it, this is fairly like a conceptual level, but we have that use capacity already as we produce it. So it's more about using it more efficiently. So my current thinking is that it seems that we could, as a kind of fashion industry, get the same out of the market with using less resources, and actually everybody's better off. And this calls for system level better provisioning again, not at the user level.